You think history was all about grand wars and serious battles? Think again. Behold, one of the most ridiculous wars in history. A war not fought over land, not over gold, not even over love, but over a beard insult. Yes, a man got mocked for his facial hair, and thousands died for it. Welcome to 14th century Italy, where city-states like Florence and Modena were always ready to rumble. It was the medieval version of a neighborhood feud, but with knights. Now, picture this. A Florentine soldier passes by a Modenese knight and casually insults his beard. "Looks like a squirrel died on your face," he may have said. Okay, we don't have the exact quote, but it must have been something spicy. The Modenese knight took it very personally. He returned home fuming, and he didn't just say, "Someone mocked my beard." No. He claimed that Florence had dishonored Modena's pride. The city council got mad. Florence said, "Phew, it's just a beard." Modena said, "This means war." And so began the War of the Whiskers, also known as the Battle of Zappolino. On November 15th, 1325, more than 30,000 soldiers from both cities met in battle. Modena, outnumbered but fueled by beard rage, fought like maniacs. They crushed the Florentine army. And what did they steal as a war trophy? A wooden bucket. Yes, a bucket from a Florentine well. They took it back to Modena, proudly placed it in their city hall. It's still there today. Thousands of lives, a giant battle, all because of a beard joke and a bucket. So next time someone mocks your beard, take a deep breath. Don't start a medieval war. Death by war? Sure. Death by birds? Oh yes. Welcome to the Great Emu War of 1932. Location? Western Australia. Target? Emus, giant, fluffy, flightless birds. The problem? After World War I, Aussie veterans were given land to farm. Sounds great, except the land was bad, water scarce, and 20,000 emus invade the fields like feathery tanks. They trampled fences, devoured crops, and ran like Olympic sprinters. Farmers panicked, so they called in the big guns, literally. The military sent Major G.P.W. Meredith, 2 soldiers, and 2 Lewis machine guns. The mission? Control the emu population. Easy, right? Wrong. Day 1, they spotted a group of emus. Fired. The birds scattered like ninjas. Not a single one fell. Day 2, they cornered 1,000 emus near a dam. Opened fire. The gun jammed. The emus ran again. Day 3, they mounted the gun on a truck, chased emus at full speed, but emus ran faster. The truck bounced so hard they couldn't aim. Result? More bullets hit the sky than the birds. After 2 weeks, the army admitted defeat. Only about a few hundred emus were killed out of 20,000. The rest, they just kept running and laughing in emu language. Major Meredith later said, "If we had a division of emus, we could defeat any army in the world." So yes, in 1932, Australia lost a war to birds. Let that sink in. What's brown, sticky, and deadly at 35 miles per hour? Nope, not a chocolate tank. It's the Great Molasses Flood of 1919, baby. Boston, Massachusetts, January 15th, 1919. A quiet winter afternoon in the North End. Kids playing stickball, horses trotting along, and somewhere, a 2.3 million gallon tank of thick, ooey-gooey molasses just sitting there. Because what else screams city planning like storing an ocean of syrup next to homes? At 12:40 p.m., bam! The tank exploded. Locals said it sounded like a machine gun, but stickier. A tsunami of hot molasses, 25 feet high, rushed through the streets at 35 miles per hour, or 56 kilometers per hour. It destroyed buildings, tossed train cars like toys, and swallowed horses whole. People tried to run, but guess what? You ever tried sprinting through pancake syrup? 21 people died, over 150 injured. Molasses flooded basements, clung to everything, and took months to clean. They said for decades, on hot days, the smell of molasses still lingered. And the best part, the company that owned that tank blamed, wait for it, anarchists. Turns out, the real culprit, the tank was poorly built, barely inspected, and started leaking weeks before the blast. No one listened. So yeah, Boston had a molasses flood, and not just a sticky situation, this was a syrupocalypse. Moral of the story? Next time someone says slow as molasses, remember it once moved faster than a horse. Once upon a time in medieval Italy, two powerful city-states, Modena and Bologna, were bitter rivals. And what did they fight over? A wooden bucket. Yep, a freaking bucket. Let me explain. The year was 1325. Tensions were already high. Modena and Bologna had long argued about land, politics, and whose pasta was better. Probably. But one day, a group of Modenese soldiers snuck into Bologna and stole something very precious. Not gold, not secrets, but a bucket from a public well. Just picked it up and walked away like, thanks for the water, we'll take this too. Bologna? Outraged. They demanded the bucket back. Modena said, come and get it. So Bologna did, with 30,000 soldiers. Yes, 30,000 men marching to Modena to reclaim a bucket. Modena? They were ready, with just 7,000 defenders. They fortified themselves and said, you'll have to pry this bucket from our cold, dead hand. A fierce battle broke out at Zappolino. Steel clashed, arrows flew, men died, over a bucket. Incredibly, the Modenese won. They drove the Bolognese army back home in shame. And the bucket? They kept it. To this day, the wooden bucket is proudly displayed in Modena City Hall, like a trophy, like a reminder that sometimes petty drama becomes epic history. So what's the lesson here? Never underestimate Italian pride, and never mess with another city's water bucket. In the wild world of history, there are wars fought for land, for glory, and for national pride. But this is the tale of 93 years of war, declared by a village of 300 people, armed with 0 weapons, against France. Yes, you heard that right. Welcome to Lijar, a sleepy little town in the south of Spain. The year is 1883. Spain is a proud kingdom. And Lijar? Well, it's a tiny village where goats probably outnumber people. That year, King Alfonso XII of Spain traveled to Paris on a diplomatic visit. You know, handshakes, fancy dinners, king stuff. But things went sideways. When the king arrived in Paris, a bunch of French protesters booed him, insulted him, and threw some very unroyal language at his majesty. The Spanish press lost their minds. An insult to the king is an insult to the nation, they cried. But guess who took it the most seriously? Not the military, not the government. Nope. It was the town council of Lihar, population 300. Mayor Don Miguel Garcia Saz gathered the people and declared, "France has insulted our king! We shall go to war!" And they did. Lihar officially declared war on France. No weapons, no army, just pure honor, anger, and probably wine. For 93 years, the war didn't happen. No battles, no injuries. France never even noticed. Then, in 1976, a new king of Spain visited Paris again. And this time, the French were nice. So Lihar held a town meeting and decided, alright, we forgive France. They signed a peace treaty. And that's the story of how a tiny Spanish village declared war on France, fought no battles, lost no soldiers, and technically won. Lesson of the day: never underestimate a small town with big pride. Imagine this. You're a farmer. You live on a beautiful island. One day, a pig walks into your garden and eats your potatoes. What do? Well, in most cases, you'd shoo the pig away. But in 1859, on San Juan Island, that pig sparked a war. Here's the backstory. San Juan Island lies between mainland USA and Canada. Back then, both the British and the Americans claimed ownership of it. But nobody wanted to fight, until a pig got hungry. A British settler named Charles Griffin owned a black pig. The pig wandered into the garden of Lyman Cutlar, an American farmer, and started munching on his potatoes. Cutlar yelled at the pig. The pig just oinked back. So, Cutlar did what any potato-loving man would do. He shot the pig. Big mistake. Griffin was furious. He demanded compensation. Cutlar refused, saying, "It's eating my crops. I shot it. Fair game." Tensions exploded. British troops prepared for war. The Americans sent soldiers too, for a dead pig. Soon, over 400 American soldiers and 5 British warships were staring each other down. Cannons loaded, fingers twitching. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed. A British admiral reportedly said, "It's not worth going to war over a damn pig." The two sides agreed to a peaceful joint occupation, and the pig became a historical legend. The Pig War never had a single casualty, except for the pig. Moral of the story? Never mess with a man's potatoes. Did a football match really start a war? Oh yes, and it wasn't even the World Cup. Welcome to 1969, where El Salvador and Honduras didn't just fight for goals. They fought with guns, tanks, and airstrikes. Honduras and El Salvador had beef. Not football beef, real beef. Land disputes, border tensions, economic stress. Plus, thousands of Salvadorans had moved into Honduras, and Honduras wasn't exactly happy about it. So what did they do to fix it? Obviously, play football. 3 matches were scheduled. It started with insults, booing, and national anthems being drowned out. Fans fought, players cried. One fan allegedly shot himself when his team lost. Yep, football was no longer just a game. By the 3rd match, it was pure chaos. El Salvador won and immediately broke diplomatic ties with Honduras. Next day, boom, war. Tanks rolled in, planes dropped bombs, soldiers marched. All over a football match? Well, kinda. It lasted 100 hours. About 3,000 people died. They call it the 100-Hour War, but history remembers it as the Soccer War. The lesson? Football brings people together. Unless you're losing, then it brings the entire army.